Hey guys, so in the last video I pointed out some issues with my 2014 and a half Model S, and I wanted to do an update on that video to kind of talk about what has been updated since then and my thoughts about the whole thing. So let's start in the interior. So the first thing that I want to talk about was the main screen. And so under, I guess you'd call it warranty, Tesla replaced the main unit with the new eMMC unit. I think it went from 8 gigabyte to 64. And I'm happy to report that it's actually made a big difference. It's really smooth now. You can see things are just so much faster and smoother. It's really feels so much better now. It's just running a lot more efficiently. So I'm really liking that. The other thing I talked about was this door panel. So I brought it in. I complained to Tesla that this door panel was rattling when you slam the door hard, and I thought, maybe you guys can put in some the plastic caps behind it, because it's probably just it's like a plastic cap in the door, and then it's these buttons that push into it. Well, unfortunately, that hasn't been resolved, and I brought it in twice, and eventually they came back and said, look, the caps back there are so worn out that we'd have to replace the whole door panel, and that's going to cost over $1,000. So I said, okay, fine, I'll live with that. But listen, for a car with 70,000 miles on it and the door panel that's coming out already, I'm a little disappointed with that one. On the exterior side, I had talked about two main issues with the rear of the car. One of them was the rear axle. It was making a low rumbling noise on the freeway, and I had just self-diagnosed it with what I suspected to be half shafts that needed to be lubricated or possibly replaced. And the other one was a clicking sound that came from underneath the rear of the car when I would accelerate out of a stop sign, or just coming from a dead stop. So I brought it into Tesla and had them address it. It was the same time that I had the screen done, and it was I had a hard time duplicating the sound for the tech. I'm sure many of you who have had the same experience will understand my frustration. But I managed to duplicate some of it, and what they ended up doing was, for the low rumbling sound, they took the half shafts off and lubricated it, and it actually seemed to help quite a bit. And for the clicking noise, surprisingly, they diagnosed it as the bushing for the power unit. What they ended up doing was they replaced the entire power unit for free. I was kind of impressed with that one. I was really shocked. But diagnosis, well, the low rumbling noise is not 100% gone. It's probably, I'm going to say, half as loud as it used to be. I'm going to say that my worn rear tires are probably not helping the rumbling noise. I've already purchased a set of new tires. I'm going to have them installed, and I'm hoping that's going to address the rear noise. The key thing for me was it's a safety thing. Tesla claims that a little bit of rear rumbling noise is normal. I guess I'll take their word for it, but it's no longer such a loud noise that it bothers me. It's really now just a very quiet, low rumble coming from the rear, so I could live with that. And if they're correct, then it's fine. I mean, it's not a horribly loud noise now, so I'm okay with that. All right. So the other thing that I had done was, like the day after I shot the last video, this door handle basically failed on me, and it wouldn't open from the outside. And so And what happened was the little motor in here got stuck on, and so it was constantly running. It was running 24 hours a day. And I was a little concerned about that, so I reached out to Tesla and I said, hey guys, you know, I don't want this motor to burn out, because they could only schedule me for like, you know, 10 days away. So they said, don't worry about it. We're going to replace the whole motor anyway, so even if it burns out, it's not a big deal. 10 days later, they sent a tech out here, and the tech said, I had the other door handle replaced, and it was like $250 or something like that by Tesla. And I was expecting to pay $250, but guess what? The tech came out here and said it's just a small part that needed to be replaced. It was $112, if I'm not mistaken. So really good. They could have been dishonest about it and replace and charged me more, but they didn't. $112, that's pretty reasonable. Okay, so the other issue that I had was coming from the front of the car. So what was happening was, as I was making left turns, accelerating and making a hard left turn, there was a clunk coming from the front axle. And that was a little disconcerting because you know, I didn't want you know, worn or broken control arms or bushings, or you know, my suspicion was that it was a sway bar end link of some sort. So they diagnosed it. Turned out that it was a front stabilizer bar, front left stabilizer bar, if I'm not mistaken. And so they replaced that. And that was about, I believe it was about $300 for the whole job. So all in all, to have the front stabilizer bar, the half shafts done, the door handle, and let's see, I think those are the key things. It has cost me a little under $1,000. So 70,000 miles, $1,000. You know, it's not cheap, but guess what? If it was a regular, any other car, I would have had to pay a lot more for all these things by now, for a lot of other repairs. So, you know, in my mind, that's actually pretty good for how much mileage this car has. Incidentally, the front clunk is gone. But now, as I'm making a left turn at higher speeds, there's a kind of a, it's hard to describe, but it's another sound coming from the bottom. I'm not so worried about that one, only because Tesla has, in 3 visits, inspected the undercarriage of this car extensively, and they've come back and said there's absolutely no safety issues with the front or the suspension of this car. So they're like, don't worry about anything. They're like, just drive it. So that gives me a sense of confidence. The remaining noise from the front of the car is reasonably negligible, and it doesn't happen every single time. So I'm okay with that for now. I did bring it back in to have them address it, but I couldn't get them to replicate the noise. So I'm okay with that. Overall, what is my feeling about this? Well, surprisingly, this experience has changed my mind about Teslas overall. So, you know, in my last video, I felt given a reasonably scathing review of the Model S, the early Model S, and going through this experience and considering how many miles is on the car, blah, blah, blah. I actually believe that the car has held out reasonably well. And when I say reasonably well, some areas it hasn't been as good as other cars. In other areas, it's been quite robust. So all in all, I think the car has been pretty good. Another surprising thing for me is the labor rate for the Tesla dealership. So I've actually found that the Tesla dealership has been very reasonably priced. In fact, in some cases, I haven't done an exact comparison, but in some cases, I believe that the Tesla dealership might be cheaper than independent mechanics. So, you know, that's been quite refreshing to hear of a dealership that's cheaper than independent mechanics. And I don't really have proof of it, but for the amount of work that's done on these cars, if I had taken this to, say, you know, my previous cars were Mercedes-Benz, I believe this is a fraction of the cost of Mercedes-Benz. So I'm quite impressed with that. You know, my concern has always been that Tesla has somewhat of a lockout on components and work done on the car. And so you're forced to take your car to Tesla for a lot of the work, and you got to pay dealership rates. But I guess when dealership rates aren't that expensive and potentially cheaper than independent mechanics, then, you know, that's not such a bad thing after all. So overall, it's changed my mind quite a bit about my experience owning the Model S. And I'd love to hear you guys' comments on this, because it seems like a 180, but it's not quite. I'm still a little bit reserved. And, you know, a friend asked me, you know, if you, when it's time to replace this car, is it going to be another Tesla? And I kind of hold the same opinion, which is it may be another Tesla, but I will still be looking at other electric cars, you know, like the Ford Mustang E, I think it's called, and Ford Lightning, F-150. I know it's a totally different class of vehicle. Those seem pretty attractive. The Hyundai Ioniqs, whatever those things are called, those seem pretty attractive as well, but I haven't really looked into their ranges and performance, and if they have any kind of, you know, their version of autopilot, which is the adaptive cruise control, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, I've been more impressed with Tesla than a few months ago. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this quick, short video on the Tesla updates. I'd love to hear your comments. And if you do get a chance, please do hit the subscribe button and also hit the notification bell so you guys will be informed when I send more updates, because I will be doing a video on the Model 3, which, boy, do I have a lot of stories about this car. And not necessarily Tesla's fault, but I do have some very exciting stories and video to share. So that's coming next.